Okay, over here on the left.
Hey, really enjoyed this film, and obviously you guys have worked on this together for a long period of time. I wanted to ask about your Drive-By Truckers, clearly well known and loved for writing your own very compelling songs, stories, narratives. But you're also doing work with artists like Betty LaVette and Booker T. And I'm just sort of wondering how does that come about, and how do you feel about it?
It's just the greatest thing ever, and we're lucky enough to this guy named Andy Calkin, who runs Anti Records and Epitaph, and he became a fan of our band, and he signed Betty LaVette to his label, and had put out the record she did a few years back. That was kind of her first breakthrough, I guess, after years and years and years of struggling and, not having record deals and everything else. And it was time to do the follow-up, and he had this crazy idea in his head that he wanted to pair her with, instead of getting session people to come in and back her up, he wanted to find a real, just living, breathing band and to back her up. And we were lucky because we were the band that he had the bright idea to pair her with. And getting to do that record was one of the greatest things ever happened to us, even though one of the hardest, but one of the greatest. And when that worked out well, and we all lived through it, and it came out and turned out to be a good record, he signed Booker T a couple of years later, and Booker sent him his demos of the new songs he'd been writing, and he had demoed all of them playing guitar, even though he's known as a keyboard player. And he's like, these songs are guitar songs. And Booker's like, I always wanted to make a guitar record. No one ever would let him. He's like, I think I know who to put y'all with. And so he called us, and we got to do that one too. So it's great. I hope we can continue to do that kind of thing. And it's just, every time we do it, we learn a lot and take a lot from it. So hopefully we can do more.
We got time for 2 more questions, so we'll go over here. Sir.
Thanks for the film bar. And Greg Van once sang, the secret to a happy ending is knowing when to roll the credits. And how did you determine when to roll the credits? Earlier or later? The change in the label? Or
6 years.
When did you decide?
There's another saying, which is a blessing and a curse. And figuring out when to roll the credits, turned out I was wrong a couple of times about when it was time to roll the credits. And maybe you guys were figuring out when it was time to roll the credits too, I don't know. You have to be fluid about these things. Because the other line in that song that maybe means more to me is what we started, which is, it ain't too late to take a deep breath and throw yourself into it with everything you got. And we did that, 300 or 400 times, I would say, before we realized, let's roll the credits. And tonight's the first night we did, so thank you.
Did you want to add to that, Patterson? You look like you were trying to say something.
Well, he was originally he was wrapping up the movie just as our band was basically disintegrating, and it finally came down to, it's like, if you're going to end the movie there, you're going to have to change the name, because it's just not going to work, because this is not a happy ending. And it's like give us a little time to see what happens next, or else this is just going to really suck.
Secret to a sucky ending just doesn't sound as good.
It's not nearly as good a time.
Sir?
I had, I guess, 2 things, and actually one of them the guy just asked about, which was about playing with Betty LaVette. But first of all, thank you for writing a song about being a teenager and drinking Mickey's Big Mouth. It needed to be done. But I guess he asked about Betty, but I guess a similar question: how'd y'all end up bringing Spooner out on the road with you, and what was that? What was that like?
When we got hired to do the Betty record, I knew we needed a keyboard player, and we all knew Spooner. And Spooner, actually, Shauna grew up with Spooner's daughter, and they've been like best friends since they were like 8 years old. They played, softball together growing up, and when she first started really taking up playing bass and playing music, he was like her mentor. He would, he was very encouraging to her at a young age. And of course, I've known Spooner most of my life because he played with my dad. And so, Spooner's kind of like family anyway. And so we figured he would be like this great middle ground between us and Betty that could, he came a little bit from the world she came from and a little bit. It didn't really work out that way, but that on paper was what was supposed to happen. And when we made that record, it was a very difficult, turbulent record to make because Betty was, it was kind of like an exorcism for her. She was having to. We basically took her to the place where the worst thing that had ever happened to her in her life had happened in 1972. And because she had made a record in Muscle Shoals that then Atlantic Records, for some reason, shelved for 30-something years. And it had just destroyed her career and basically wrecked her life for a long time. And so when we took her back there to make the record together, all of that came to the surface. And it wasn't pretty. And but Spooner was the saving grace, because all the way through it, we would, when everything was getting really miserable, we'd look at Spooner and he'd just make us laugh and make us feel good. And we're like, God, let's make another record with him. And so he did Brighter Than Creation's Dark with us and toured with us for a couple of years, which was just great.
And like the movie said, the song says, time to roll the credits here. Got to thank the AFI Beautiful Theater and thank all of these people for making this wonderful film. I didn't have a chance to be with them.